So today I want to talk about the subject of Esau and Edom and why it is that the Jews call the Europeans Edomites, knowing full well that the Europeans are of the sons of Japheth or Japheth. There is a reason for this. And I will use this video to explain it and to expose the Europeans for what they are. You see, during the blessings of Esau, or blessing of Israel, I'm going to read something from a website called Never Thirsty. It just makes it a little quicker. The blessing pronounced upon Jacob and Esau by Isaac are described in Genesis 27. The blessings given to Jacob occurs in Genesis 27 verses 27 through 30. So he, Jacob, came close and kissed him, Isaac, Yitzhak. And when he, Yitzhak, smelled the smell of his garments, he blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is like the smell of the field, which Jehovah has blessed. And now may Elohim give you the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, and of the abundance of grain, and of new wine. May people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master of your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed are those who curse you, and blessed are those who bless you. And now came about as soon as Yitzhak had finished blessing Jacob or Jacob. And Jacob had hardly gone out of the presence of his father, and that Esau, his brother, came in from hunting. Genesis 27, verse 27 through 30. In this blessing, Isaac promises that many nations of the world, including the descendants of his brother Esau, would serve Jacob's descendants. Jacob will rule over Esau. The blessing to Esau occurs in Genesis 27, verses 38 through 40. And I would not call that a blessing, folks. It was never called a blessing to Esau in the Bible. In fact, it was a curse. Esau said to his father, Did you have only one blessing, my father? That's my point. None. No blessing for Esau. Please bless me also, my father. So Esau lifted up his voice and wept, and then Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling. Yes, King James Version has it wrong. They twisted it. They perverted the translation. It is correctly thus, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling, and away from the dew of heaven from above. And by the sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. And it shall come to pass when you become restless that you will break his yoke from off your neck. That's in Genesis 27, verses 38 through 40. Now, there came a time when I believe it was, as it says here, Edom finally broke the yoke from the neck in the 475 BC period. But also, the Nabatean Arabs drove the Edomites out of Edom. The Edomites relocated to Edomia, which the Romans, Greeks created? Either the Greeks or the Romans or both created this, how do I put this? This concept of forcing the Israelites and the Edomites to live together, I should say, forcing the Jews and the Edomites to live together, and calling it, well, they first started calling it Edomia, which is Edom, and then it was that was the Greeks that did that, and then the Romans came and took over the region and called the area Judea, which means Judah/Edomia. And this is the same concept that is going on today as we speak. Edomites living in Jewish lands, Edomites calling themselves Palestinians, a name that the Romans created so as to blot out the name of Israel forever, trying to deny the Jews of their inheritance. The Edomites, as I understand, stood with the Babylonians, and they rejoice over the victory against the Jews in the Babylonian period. Okay, and that's when their neck was broken. When the yoke of Israel was broken off the Edomites' neck. Now, remember, we read in Genesis 27:38-40, by the sword shall you live, but your brother shall you serve. Okay. Christianity, under Constantine, chose the way of Esau. By the sword you shall live. You see, when Constantine took power, they chose to be Israel's enemy. Paul warned the Romans against this concept, but they didn't listen to Paul. And consequently, they chose the way of Esau. Now, let me read Obadiah. This is the destruction of Edom or Esau. And folks, let me warn that those who choose the way of Esau, living by the sword, are going to fall like Esau did, die by the sword. Obadiah 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith Jehovah Elohim concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor of Jehovah, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise you, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made you small among the heathen, you are greatly despised. Pride in your heart has deceived you. You that dwell in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, and have said in your heart, who's going to bring us down to the ground? Though you have exalted yourself as an eagle, and though you have set your nest among the stars, hence will I bring you down, says Jehovah. If thieves came to you, and if robbers by night, how are you cut off? Wouldn't they have left a few things behind them? If the grape gatherers came to you, wouldn't they have left a few grapes? Verse 6, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All of the men of your confederacy have brought you even to the border. The men that were at peace with you have deceived you and prevailed against you. And they that eat your bread have laid a wound under you. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith Jehovah, even destroy the wise men out of Edom and the understanding out of Mount Esau? And your mighty men, O Yemen, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau shall be cut off by slaughter. For your violence against your brother Jacob, shame shall cover you, and you shall be cut off forever. In the day that you stood on the other side. What do you mean the other side? Stood against the Jews with Babylon, you see. In the day that you stood on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away the captives, his forces and foreigners entered into the gates of Jerusalem, and cast lots on Jerusalem, even you were one of them. You see where I'm going with this, folks? You were one of them. You should have not looked on the day at your brother in the day that he became a stranger. Neither should have you rejoiced over the captivity of the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither should you have spoken proudly in the day of their distress. And what do the Christians do today? Every Sunday, they speak proudly how the Jews are forced to play second fiddle, and they, the churches, supersede Israel. The churches, Christianity, have chosen the way of Esau. You should not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. You should not have looked on their affliction in that day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Laid hands on their substance? This was talking about in the days of Babylon. But, you see, the word of Jehovah applies to any act against the Jews that was done in this manner. And what did Christian Europe do in the day of the Jews' calamity? The Holocaust. They laid their hands on the Jews' substance, and to this day, those hands are being pried open in an attempt to give it back, because people are not giving it back. Who was it that did this? Christian Europe did this. Christian Europe is Esau, is Edom. Figuratively speaking, they have chosen the way of Esau. I'll read it again, verse 13. Obadiah 1, verse 13. You should not have entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. You should not have looked on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor you should have not laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither should you have stood in the way. Uh-oh. What? In the crossway to those of his that escaped. Great Britain? That was you! It was you! When the Jews tried to escape Nazi Europe, who was there in the Holy Land blocking their way? The British. Christian British did this. Unfortunately, so did the United States of America in a smaller way. Blocking the ship from unloading in the port in Miami so that these people could escape. The way of Esau. Neither should you have delivered up those of his that remained in the day of distress. This is what the British did. That's what the French did. The way of Esau. Europe, Christian Europe is Esau. Now, verse 15, for the day of Jehovah is near upon all the heathen. Oh, wait a minute. Did he say all the heathen or just Edom? Why did he say all the heathen? Because they have all chosen the way of Esau. So here is the judgment. Here it is, folks. Listen to the words of Jehovah by Obadiah the prophet. As you have done, it shall be done unto you. Your reward shall return on your own head. For as you have drunk upon my holy mountain, so shall all the heathen drink continually. They will drink, they will swallow down, and they shall be as though they had never existed. Wow. Completely obliterated. Verse 17, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for a stubble. That's literally and figuratively speaking, folks. Those who chose the way of Esau will suffer in the same way as Esau. And there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Jehovah has spoken it. All right. I want to mention a couple of things before I sign off here. Let's see. I'm trying to remember the scripture. gone over this before. Let's see here. There we go. I thought it was rock and it's stone. Luke 20 and verse 18. This is a time when the chief cornerstone was rejected, but was rejected so that salvation could be set in motion. And he says, verse 18, whosoever shall fall upon that stone shall be broken. Well, the leaders of the Jews of that crooked generation, of that unrighteous generation, fell upon him and killed him. And they were broken, fulfilling Daniel the prophet when the power of the holy people would be scattered or broken. Okay? However, it says also, but on whomsoever that stone shall fall, it will grind him to powder. And we read in Daniel 2, around in the 40s area, where the kingdoms of this world, beginning from Babylon to Roman Europe, will be ground into powder and will be blown away like the chaff in the wind. But Israel, but for a moment in comparison, we'll just go to it. Jeremiah 30, in verse 11. For I am with you, saith Jehovah, to save you. Though I make a full end of all the nations where I have scattered you, I will not make a full end of you, but I will correct you in measure and not leave you altogether unpunished. So, this was where they fell upon the rock and they were broken. But the nations where they were scattered into will be made a full end of, shall rise up no more. Now, why Esau? Esau sold his birthright for one bowl of soup. And therefore he disqualified himself. We'll go to Genesis 25. Verse 29. And Jacob boiled pottage. And Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray you, from that same red pottage, for I am faint, therefore his name is called Edom. And Jacob said, Sell me this day your birthright. And Esau said, Behold, I am at the point to die. What profit shall be this birthright due to me? And Jacob said, Swear to me this day. And he swore unto him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And then Jacob gave Esau the bread and pottage of lentils. And he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. No, Jacob did not steal the birthright as Jacob's detractors claim. No, Esau despised his birthright. So did the Christians of Europe. Now, Hebrews 12 and verse 16. Just so nobody is ever confused, Hebrews 12 and verse 14. Follow peace with all men and holiness. Let me ask you a question. Did Christian Europe follow Paul's commandment about following peace with all men and holiness, without which no man shall see Jehovah? What? To be peaceful with all men is holiness. And without it, you will never see Jehovah. Looking diligently, when see means, how do I put this? Not just to see with your own eyes. That's to see the salvation of Jehovah. You see. Look it diligently, lest any man fail by the grace of Jehovah, lest any root of what? Bitterness. The root of bitterness has infected European Christianity and, unfortunately, aplenty in the United States as well. Root of bitterness, hatred, especially for the Jews, springing up trouble you, and by that root of bitterness and hatred you become defiled. Verse 16, lest there be any fornicator or profane person as Esau, who for one morsel of meat sold his birthright. When he sold his birthright and despised it, it exposed him for what he was, a fornicator and a profane person. Verse 17, for you know what happened afterward when he would have inherited the blessing. He was rejected. And he found no place for repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears. He could not change the outcome, even though he wept bitterly. But he did it to himself. How did he do it? He profaned his birthright, sold it like a prostitute would sell her body. That's why Paul mentions the word fornicator. And then he went to live by the sword, and a root of bitterness entered into his heart, his children's heart and ate them. And so this has happened to Christian Europe. And just as Esau or Edom became no more, so shall European Christianity become no more.